Didn't you watch Wayne's World? When you're doing the countdown, Nicholas, you go 3, 2, and you
Yeah,
point.
but we have a click after the one, so it's different.
No.
And it takes forever for it to go live, if we're being honest, too.
Shape up or ship out, Nicholas.
Okay.
Right?
Yes,
I mean, come on.
Yes,
come on. Like, the honeymoon is over, right?
Wow.
We're back. Get your fucking shit together, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, Doc is on time this week. Geeks Worldwide Radio, the Dork Shared Gooniverse proudly presents you the greatest, and I mean the greatest, podcasting team in the world. He's the Fry Guy, Nick Fryer. I am healthy and on time. Back cracker, baby. Welcome to the TLDR Comic Book Club. Nicholas, my friend, how are you doing?
I am doing just splendid. And you know what's funny is I didn't think about the fact that you're healthy. And because normally I'm like, when you say you're sick, I'm like, oh, no, you sound fine. You're good. Don't worry about it. This is the first time I think I've ever actually really noticed the difference in a good way. Good way this time around.
Because I either always look like shit or it sounds like shit. So
I don't think you always look
I'm glad it's all come together.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it's good to get back at it. And obviously, we're doing more horror comics. We're doing another mainline episode. Which honestly, if there's any time of year where I want us to make sure we're getting mainline stuff, and because generally it's like whatever's going on, whatever works for me. It's fun to do interviews. It's fun to do just do mainline stuff, but during spooky season, I like to hear about some horror books from you. I like to dig into some myself. And we actually have a pretty interesting experience today for the book that I chose. And I will explain a little bit more why later on. But we actually have a lot to get to, more than usual for our mainline episodes, because we have to talk about New York Comic-Con stuff. But before I mention that, I did say interviews. Not that we have any in the hopper right now, but you never know when they're going to pop up. The only way you're going to find those is you subscribe to one of our audio channels. That's Apple, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, SoundCloud, Amazon, anywhere that you find any major podcasting platforms, we are there. So if you're scrolling on Twitter, you're finding us now. If you find us on our YouTube page, make sure you go find one of our audio channels, subscribe there as well, and leave a 5-star rating and review. Only 5 stars on Apple. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of backcracker. Highest rating anywhere else that you listen to podcasting. But the reason is you're not going to find our interviews on Twitter, on Doc's Twitch, or on our YouTube page. You only find our interviews on audio channels. Now, getting back to the news, because we have a lot to get to. A few things that I've jotted down here. So, Joe, the biggest one for me coming out of New York Comic-Con was not only do we get DC bringing back Elseworld, which I think Dark Knights of Steel is probably the biggest reason why that's happening.
100%.
We are getting Dark Knights of Steel 2. The table was set for that to happen. As much as it could have ended right there with 12 issues, that was set to go and do more. Of course, the thing that I'm most excited about with this announcement is Jay Kristoff is writing a Dark Knights of Steel story. And I know you recognize that name, Joe, but for the people who don't know, when I proposed to my now wife, I used the first book that she shared with me, the first prose book, which takes a long time. You know what? I knew you were going to do this too. Give me a second. I used that book to ask her to marry me. I got it hollowed out and everything. And it's funny, Joe did say use the book somehow, find a way to use it, put the ring in there. And then I went to Salem and I got lucky and found this person who does like safe making, and it all just kind of clicked, because I was like, well, Joe, like when Joe said, I'm like, the ring's going to fall out. But what's also funny is Joe, when I go and tell my wife that Joe came up with the idea originally, he's like, why the hell are you saying it? Now, every time I bring it up, Joe's like, hey, make sure you credit me. I told the wife.
I'm the reason you're married, bro. Just say it.
Yes,
just say it.
Yes,
I was up your ass about proposing.
Yes, you were. Yes, you would have thought Joe was her older brother. My goodness.
You're welcome.
But but seriously, like Jay Kristoff is an outstanding writer, and I really enjoy his Nevernight series. And there's more of his work that I need to check out. But getting to see him do some stuff in comics, I always say it, like I want to see prose writers get into the mix, like, especially prose writers who are well established. Sarah Gailey is one who you've talked about on here as well. So I'm very excited to see Jay Kristoff and see what he can do, especially in Dark Knights of Steel too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, I love the idea, right? And I love that they're bringing Elseworlds back, but I wonder why they just wouldn't continue to use Black Label. Just give these writers the chance and do it under Black Label, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference is, or maybe they want to try and market it to a wider audience. That would probably be my guess. But regardless, I love these stories because we get 1,000 fucking Batman books a week, and we get 1,000 like Spider-Man books a week. Like, we love these characters, but there's like a ton of books out, and so like we at a certain point it kind of gets repetitive, and that's what Elseworlds and Black Label provides. So you can kind of go off canon, you can get a little nuts. Let's get nuts. And I love that because you get you get some of these writers that come along that you're maybe not familiar with, or making their debut, and they maybe they just fucking knock it out of the park, and you go yes, and then that turns into more opportunities and more great content. So I absolutely love this. The biggest thing for me that I was really fucking pumped and jacked about was news from a friend of the show, Declan Shalvey, who dropped that he's writing Thundercats for Dynamite.
Crazy.
So little Doc, young Doc, there was like 3 shows that was everything to me when I was a kid. It was Ninja Turtles, it was Inspector Gadget, and it was Thundercats. I fucking love Thundercats. I had the sword, watched everything, right? It was the fucking best. Like I talked last week how I've never read a Transformers comic. I've never really been interested in a Transformers comic, but you attach Daniel Warren Johnson to it, I'm going to read the fucking shit out of it. And I did, and it was excellent. You put Declan Shalvey on a fucking Thundercats book, and I think he's writing and drawing it.
Nope, just writing.
Just right. Doesn't matter. I am so fucking in, it hurts. Right? I fucking can't wait for this. Everything about the characters are great. The logo's great. This is gonna fucking take me back to my youth, and I'm gonna absolutely love the shit out of it.
I didn't watch Thundercats. I think this is where you and I had that.
This is that 10-year age gap between us, bro.
Exactly. But I'll tell you what, I am very much excited for it because this seems like something that I've largely missed out on. Because I think one that you're not big into. I know the Wii one is a big fan of Pokemon, but that you were too old for that when that came out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. I wouldn't say I was too old because I definitely played the games on Game Boy.
Okay.
And definitely watched the cartoon a little bit, but it wasn't my age. It was just the same thing with Power Rangers. Like
Right.
I just missed out on Power Rangers, right? Because both were cultural phenomenons, but those are more my brother's wheelhouse. But for me, like, because Thundercats was an 80s cartoon, it was every morning, before I got on the school bus, it was Inspector Gadget, and then Saturday mornings it was Thundercats, it was Ninja Turtles, right? It was all like Thundercats was sort of in that grouping of awesome late 80s cartoons, and then the 90s hit, and that's when you get X-Men and Batman, and sort of like you graduate sort of from one level to the next. So this was fucking awesome news.
Yeah,
I'm
very excited. I am very, very excited for it. I would say that's probably, again, not a Thundercats fan. Not I just never really had a chance to give it a chance. I'm very excited because I'll tell you what, too. The other thing that helps it out, not a He-Man, never been a He-Man fan, but when they made that Netflix cartoon, I think it came out in 2020 or maybe just after or whatever. But I was like, oh, you know what? I'll give it a look because obviously different, there's a lot more free time and everything. I really, really enjoyed that. So getting to see something else, an older property, get brought into, the 21st century by a writer who we both like, very excited for that.
And that's the thing with He-Man, right? Is I believe that was spearheaded by
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith, right? Who is someone who probably watched the shit out of it and loved it as a kid, right? And he's gone on to do great things, and he's been able go on to like have this ability to write these comics. I'm sure as shit Declan Shalvey, because I believe he's around my age, probably watched Thundercats as a kid and said, I gotta write this fucking comic, and it's gonna be he's gonna kick ass at it.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Some other major announcements. The one that grabbed the most headlines for sure was the news centered around Scott Snyder and one Tom Hardy. So we've seen this quite a bit where celebrities get into the comic book game. They end up writing it with a co-writer. But I'll tell you what, Tom Hardy and Scott Snyder, that is an impressive pairing for sure. Their comic is called Arcbound. The publisher, we don't know who that is just yet, but the synopsis is a little bit long, at least what came out in the Hollywood Reporter. But just, the first sentence: the formidable corporatocracy Xenotech harnesses the unmatched energy of chromium to assert its dominion across the stars. there's a lot more to it. But you actually have called dibs on this, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. It was a snake move. I did, but sometimes you got to get down the trenches. You got to get a little dirty.
Yeah.
This will be interesting. We'll. I mean, Scott Snyder, he's a great writer, but I think he's a great mentor too, right? He's mentored a lot of the great writers that we have now, and I think when working with a celebrity, like Tom Hardy, I think he'll be a great mentor to him, and I think we'll hear a lot more of Tom Hardy's voice in this comic than we did, say, Keanu Reeves' voice in Berserker, right?
Yeah.
So this is very interesting, and it'll be fun to see how it shakes out. I've got to imagine it's probably going to be Dark Horse, Distillery, Comixology, perhaps, or IDW. That because those are the big. Those are the
Yeah.
studios that Snyder is, affiliated with mostly, right now. I
These
mean, Image,
days,
of
yeah.
course, as well. But, it'll be interesting to see, how that goes. Distillery, I think, would be that would be kind of big for that. So
that would be huge for Distillery. And I would think from if he's trying to do it from help the industry standpoint, Distillery is probably the way to go. But
yeah,
at the same time, I do think that he's in a position to have a bidding war. I don't know
yeah,
how high some of these companies can go, but I got to imagine that first issue is going to sell like hotcakes, man. That's going
yeah,
to be a big one. So I'm excited. And look, in the end, we've seen it where celebrities come into the mix. Keanu Reeves is not the only one, and it's sometimes it's good, sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not great. So it's kind of been a mixed bag. But when we see someone like Scott attached to it, obviously you're going to feel a little bit more comfortable. We also saw another friend of the show, Kyle Higgins, is attached to Kid Cudi. He has co-written a comic with Kyle called Moon Man. We already know that one is going to be coming out with Image Comics. I'll be checking this one out. This is not in the Massive Verse from the looks of it, but still going to give this one a look. But not calling dibs on it necessarily because I'm just not sure exactly what to expect with this one. Do you have any
and then
thoughts?
we got one last. It's something that we probably should have mentioned last week, and I don't know why it wasn't on League of Comic Geeks on their what's new this week. But speaking of Scott Snyder, and his work with Comixology, he wrote a book with his son Jack called By a Thread. So if you have a Comixology account, if you're a member, it's free. You can go download it. If not, you can go give it a check digitally. I just downloaded it today because I just remembered it, so I'm going to give that a read and see. I believe who else did this with their kid? The dude that was writing Spider-Man.
The one you just read the other day. For the
Well,
Image book,
yeah,
with his daughter.
with his daughter, Ethan Sachs. That was
Was it Night or
let me
with
see. I'm
girl in the
scrolling
title?
through here. Yeah. Give me one
Yeah,
second.
I
Image.
I
A Haunted Girl.
there you
Right.
go.
Yeah, excellent. No, who's the guy that directed who directed the fucking first and last
Oh,
Star Wars movie?
oh wow, this is
He did the
bad.
Star Trek movies. Who's the fucking director? J.J. Abrams.
There you go. Yes, I
He
remember
did a
this.
Spider-Man book with this kid, which was actually half decent. So there's potential here. But that's it for comic related news. It was I couldn't even keep up with half of the fucking New York Comic-Con news. But Twitter was just flooded with stuff. So much dropped this week. But those were some of our favorite highlights.
Yeah.
Catching up, Nicholas.
Yes,
What
sir.
you got, brother?
Yeah, so I got a huge stack of stuff that I've been catching up on. I mentioned it last week while we were away, obviously caught up on some stuff. Transformers issue 1, I got a chance to finally read that. Really, really enjoyed it. Yes,
Right?
very well done. Yeah, it was awesome stuff. The Witcher Wild Animals by a friend of the show, Bartosz Stiver. Yep.
Fucking fantastic.
The artist on this one is Natalia Rarenka. And
great job.
Really, really welcome addition. Ghost Rider issue 18, which we may talk about that a little bit more later. Sirens of the City issue 3, again, something we may talk about more later. Peacemaker Tries Hard issue 5 and 6. So that is all done. I'm actually correct on it this time. And I've mentioned before, it is a TLDR worthy book. We did a whole thing on DC Black Label. It finished off being TLDR worthy. So I will be talking about this as soon as spooky season ends. And then last but not least, Dark X-Men. I professed my love for Madeline Pryor after issue 1. And I love Gambit. Very strong issue for the two of them. Very strong issue in general. I feel outstanding about Dark X-Men going forward. So I've caught up on a lot, and there are even a couple other things, but I don't want to get bogged down because we have a lot of other stuff to get to. What about you?
There's a couple of books I definitely forgot to put on here, but a couple of DC books: Batman, City of Madness, issue 1, written and
Oh
drawn, I
yeah,
believe, by Christian Ward.
yeah,
Not bad, not bad. Some very interesting stuff in there. It's a Black Label book, so we get some Alfred in there, which was nice. So this was a very interesting first issue. Batman and Robin, issue 2, written by Josh Williamson. Again, I love his command with Damian Wayne. He just gets the
right.
character perfectly. So another great series. And then The Hunger and the Dusk, issue 3, written by G. Willow Wilson. Again, this just continues to be a fucking fantastic book. If you're a fan of fantasy, war, humans, orcs, that kind of shit, you're gonna absolutely love it. Fantastic stuff.
G. Willow Wilson kicks ass. There's no two ways about it. All right. So with that, let's get into what's new this week. Joe, take us through Marvel.
Okay, well, real quick, we have a couple of trade paperbacks.
Oh yes.
That I'll just rip through real quick. So from Marvel, we have Wolverine Volume 6. Can you believe it? That's how fucking deep into Wolverine Benjamin Percy is. Absolutely
Awesome.
love it. Cosmic Ghost Rider, which I believe was written by Stephanie Phillips. That trade is out. X-Men Red Volume 3 and the Extreme Venomverse trade paperback is all out from Marvel. From DC, we have the Deceased box set. This thing looks massive. If you enjoyed that series, this is probably definitely a collector's item you're going to want. And then the Three Jokers, maybe a hardbound copy, perhaps. I don't know why this was on League of Comic Book Geeks like 2 years after the trade already came out, but I noticed that on there. From Image, we have Monarch Volume 1, Two Graves Volume 1, and Blood Tree Volume 1. And then from Dark Horse, there's Hellboy, BRPD, The Secret of Chesborough House. And then speaking of He-Man, we have Masters of the Universe Volume 1 trade. So that'll be a great way to catch up on that.
It's a lot. That's a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some I left out too, but those are the real, like, the meaty
Yeah,
ones
Monarch,
there.
by the way, from friend of the show, Rodney Barnes. I did fall behind on that one, so I may just pick up the trade here, get through all of that, and then see if I want to talk about it on here at some point.
All right. But what is new for the week of October, I guess, 18th?
Yes.
When new
As the
comic
crow
book
flies.
hit us this week, right? As the crow flies. From Marvel, we have 1,000 fucking books. We have Moon Knight issue 28. It is. Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 11. The Incredible Hulk issue 5. We have Star Wars issue 30. And I've been on a massive Star Wars kick, mostly because of Ahsoka, but I also got the Lego has been doing the Star Wars panorama, whatever you fucking call it, diorama sets.
There you go.
Not diorama. And I got the fucking the scene from Return of the Jedi where it's Luke versus Vader, and it's in the Emperor's throne room there. Fucking awesome. It looks really great. But anyways,
yeah, it's nice.
Invincible Iron Man issue 11, Scarlet Witch issue 9, Children of the Vault issue 3, The Sensational She-Hulk issue 1, Astonishing Iceman issue 3, Avengers Inc. issue 2, Crypt of Shadows. I meant to read this one. Didn't get a chance to. Crypt of Shadows issue 1. That one actually looks. I think that's an anthology, or there's a bunch of different stories in there for some great writers. We have Deadpool, Batter Blood issue 5. We have Spine Tingling Spider-Man issue 1. Obi-Wan issue 2, and then there's 2 books that we wish to discuss. I'll let you kick things off here with Ghost Rider issue 19.
Yeah, I mentioned before that I wanted to talk about this at more length. Again, I had to catch up a little. I was one issue behind. Written by friend of the show, Benjamin Percy, and then pencils by Corey Smith and Brent Peoples, who's also one of the anchors, along with Oren Jr. on this issue. And we rave about this book constantly. And I did have a moment when I was reading this, and I was like, "Fucking issue 19." Of Ghost Rider. I remember when we talked to Benjamin Percy, he's like, I think he said that he expected to have 12 issues of this, but Ghost Rider usually doesn't go that long. There's no greater testament to how good of a feel he has of this character and how he is as a writer than just alone this being on its 19th friggin' issue. And I
with
love
no end in sight. With no end in sight.
no end in sight. And I love how people are supporting, and people got to be supporting this book because Marvel wouldn't keep it going like this if they weren't. So that's outstanding. Right now, the focus has shifted to Talia Warroad, who is a character that Ben has created, and really enjoyed her addition to Marvel, and then just this darker side of Marvel. And specifically, we're now delving a little bit, we're crossing into her past a little bit,
Love
and
it.
learning
It's the best
how,
part.
learning how she's like, she's she's edgy now, but she was like like a problem back in the day. And this comes up in the 18th issue, so this isn't spoiling things, but the cult of Mephisto is at the center of things, and I absolutely love that, where we're getting this like this I mean, straight on cult vibe in this story. And then Ghost Rider's kind of someone who obviously is not going to put up with a lot of that, but he's put in an interesting position because of the people that are kind of drawn to the cult of Mephisto. So I love where Benjamin Percy has taken this story. I love how he's taken his time with Talia Warroad too, because this is a character who he introduced and like made significant originally, and then things kind of then once her and Ghost Rider like officially teamed up, she took a little bit of a back seat, and then now we have her at the front again. So like this to me, like that is a great example of how to introduce new characters where we're talking about the big two, because that is not an easy thing to do.
No, and boy, have they teamed up. Hachi Machi. But I love that Benjamin Percy has finally, given us all what we wanted, and that's Mephisto. I mean, how how many, DC freaking MCU movies were like, oh, it's Mephisto, we're getting Mephisto. There's no fucking Mephisto. Now we got Mephisto, baby.
Yes, there
But
you go.
this is fucking awesome. He's done a killer job with it.
Yeah, he has. Now, a book that I'm very curious that you want to talk about, the second issue of Daredevil, the second issue of the post Chip Zdarsky, Marco Cicchetto era.
So if you could look up the writer for me, I apologize for not having this written down, but I remember when I discussed the first issue, there was a couple of things at play there, right? One was, I just came off of a little bit of heartache with the original, or with my Chips run of Daredevil ending, and so maybe I wasn't going in with as much optimism as I should. But I remember saying I loved the story. I thought it was a really great story, but the art wasn't necessarily my favorite in that first issue. The art was definitely not an issue this time around, and I don't know if that's just because some time went by and I kind of forgot it, but I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. I love where the story is going. Thank you. The writer is Saladin Ahmad with art by Aaron Cooter and or Cutter. If I made your name naughty, I apologize. But this was an excellent issue, and I'm in.
Nice. You're
I'm invested. I'm in. I'm all in. I'm all invested. Is it Chips? Daredevil? No, nothing will be, honestly, right? So I have to separate the two, and I have to appreciate for what is going on here with Aaron and Ahmad. It's an excellent story, and I love it, and so I highly recommend, if you're a Daredevil fan, jumping on board.
Oh, that's okay. Then I'm going to give it a look then, because I was waiting to kind of see how you felt about it. Didn't mean I wasn't going to look into it, but I know you're going to be a little bit stingier. And I will say I did feel a little more confident, I think, than you did. But again, like I love Chip's run, but that is a very like personal, like significant. It has great significance to you, greater significance than I could ever have, because it brought you back to comics, and that's just something that you can't replicate.
Right.
I did trust that when we had Chip on, I think it was the second time that we had him on, he talked about the process of like finding the new Daredevil writer, the next Daredevil writer, and like knowing that he was involved did make me feel a little bit better, because it's like, he's obviously done a good job. I trust that he's going to find somebody that is going to do the character justice, but at the same time, not do the same exact shit that he's been doing. And Daredevil historically is a very, very well written character.
Yeah, and it's hard to follow in those footsteps, and you kind of have to let the new guy kind of do his thing, right? And but so far, 2 issues, excellent.
Awesome. All right, DC. We don't have any books that you and I want to highlight, but we did get Nightwing issue 107 back this week, which is funny because I feel like it's been forever since we got an issue of Nightwing. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Then we got Batman, Superman, World's Finest issue 20, Superman issue 7, which you are reading, Titans issue 4, Catwoman 58. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong issue 1. I meant to try and check this out. It's tough because I can't read it on my iPad. I do not like reading comics on my laptop. Like I used to do it when I didn't have an iPad. I've been spoiled for damn sure. Let's see. We got White Knight Generations issue 6, Jay Garrick The Flash issue 1, Hawk Girl issue 4, Green Lantern Journal issue 2, City Boy issue 5, Cyborg issue 4, Hurley Quinn. Oh, geez, that was a little Boston.
Hurley. Well, Hurley Quinn.
Is that what it sounded like? I didn't know if I was okay. Interesting.
Yeah. You ever hear about that Hurley Quinn?
Hurley
Oh,
Quinn.
she's one sassy lady, isn't she? Ooh, mama.
Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, issue 4, Nightmare Country, which may come up later, The Glass House, issue 5, and Fables, issue 160, which then brings us to Image, Joe.
Okay, so I gotta put my Texas hat off, get my cowboy. Were you wearing your cowboy boots when you said Harley Quinn there? Is that where you got your
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
All right, so
You got to get yourself a pair. They add
dude, there ain't no way I'm getting these Hobbit triple E width feet into a pair of fucking cowboy. There's not enough canola oil in the world that can help me slip into those son bitches.
They'll make you taller.
Yeah, they'll make me taller. They'll also break my fucking feet. From Image Comics, we have Tenement issue 5. Oh man, I so wish that this arc had ended in time for me to talk about it during spooky season. Because it may or may not. I need to see how it ends. I could easily talk about it right now on the show. It's that good, but I really need to know how it ends. This is Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino, the Bone Orchard mythos there. But this was it's been such a good series, but this was a great issue. We have Time Before Time issue 28, Swan Songs issue 4, The Forged issue 5, Hexagon Bridge issue 2, Click Click Boom issue 5, Hack Slash Back to School issue 1. I believe that's written by Tim Seeley. In Hell We Fight issue 5, Scrapper issue 4, Tales of Suspense issue 3, Junior Baker The Righteous Faker issue 2, and then we have Cup of Two Tree books we want to talk about. Nick, why don't you lead us off here?
Before we do that, I may have called, if that Hack Slash Back to School thing is Tim Seeley, I may have called dibs on that one.
I didn't read it, so
I gotta look. I'll make sure I look into that because I may have called dibs just to because you get so quick on the trigger. I know you're in a big Tim Seeley.
Oh, thanks, Megan.
I may have done that out of spite. You said that your wife does shit to you out of spite?
No, you see, you called me quick on the trigger.
Oh, jeez! Wow. Okay. Well, all right. There we go. Anyways,
way to get the joke, Nicholas.
I guess you know what? I'm not used to that kind of terminology being thrown around. I don't know. All right. So I'm gonna start things off with Kill Your Darlings issue 2, and obviously we've had the creative team on the show. At least I welcome the creative team.
Whoa!
Hey, Joe,
Sorry,
I'm just telling you, if we have them on again, they may not want you. They had a lot of negative things to say about you when we did.
Yeah. No, I would say, what is something else? But
okay. But Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan are the co-writers on that. Robert Quinn is the artist, and then John J. Hill is the letterer and designer of this series. And with this one, it picks up right where we left off in terms of the craziness, but there is a time jump in the second issue of Kill Your Darlings. And again, I knew I didn't know. I had a very strong feeling this was going to be a can't miss series. The first issue, I was proven right. The second issue, again, proved that I am right in this because this gets dark. The end of the first issue is dark and it's like kind of it's fucked up. I mean, there's no other way to put
that
it.
Image. That I and I'm so mad. I just couldn't do the interview because there's one panel at the end of the first issue, and we talked about, you know, with just the artist did such an incredible job. There was no words on this panel because the panel preceding it, you just see a bunch of like shocked faces,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get this one image, and it is forever etched in my fucking brain. This is, you know, this is hyperbole, but like I fucking mean it. It might be one of my favorite comic panels, period, of just the reveal of what's implied, with everything that sort of led up to it, and just this image that you get. It was just like, it was a perfect fucking panel. It was
Yep.
excellent, and it told so much without saying a fucking word. It was
Yep.
brilliant.
1,000%. It was freaking outstanding. And I will say too, as much as I'm over here taking a victory lap, and you have since read it, I lost my dibs on it because, you know, having a guest on the show takes precedent over dibs. You were right in some capacity that, like, you were like, you know, I don't know, like, I have a daughter who it feels like she's of this age, and when I read the end of that issue, I was like, Joe was pretty spot on. Like, I don't blame him for feeling this way, because if that happened,
Yeah.
but this, like, so that's dark and twisted at the end of that issue, but we get a kind of different type of dark throughout the majority of this issue, and then things get kind of like wild and crazy in the course of the issue, and it's kind of
Yeah.
adds a little bit of comedy to it. And I got to talk to the guys about that when I had them on the show. Really enjoyed that conversation in general. Highly recommend listening to that, again, only on our audio channels if you want to go check that out. But where things leave off, it's a different ending from the first one, which is a good thing, and I'm just very excited going into this third issue, as opposed to last time where I was like, fuck. Now it's like, okay, let's get this shit going. All right.
Yeah, the beginning to this issue too, where you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but you know, where the main character, she's where she's at, very similar vibe to A Haunted Girl, and the beginning of that story too, right? So
Okay.
you just sort of that, just it's dark, it's heavy, it's just great storytelling,
Yeah.
is what it is. And so excellent issue.
On that note, too, the last thing that I wanted to say, like, this issue is a lot. There's a lot of character development, just like in the first issue. Like, and that's the thing that's kind of blown my mind the most about the first two issues of Kill Your Darlings. It's so much about character in these first two issues that it's not really until the end of the second one where it's like, okay, like now we know the direction we're going in with the plot.
Yeah.
They haven't like laid breadcrumbs for the plot moving forward. They absolutely have, but like, it's so much just about developing Rose, and I am so invested in this character. So these first two issues have been absolutely outstanding. Again, I love this series. Cannot wait. Like, we read this in advance, so I've been sitting on talking about this like at length for a while now. So you know, we have to wait a little longer for issue 3 than everybody else, and it is a little frustrating.
Yeah, but it's fantastic.
A
No
thousand.
doubt about that.
Now, there's another book that we both read that we can talk about, and there's one that you've read solo. Which one do you want to dig into?
Let me read solo, and then we'll finish up with the one that
We
we
both
both read.
Okay,
So
cool.
Local Man is back. I talked about Local Man on this several mainline issues ago. Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks, and just how great of a series this has been. And so I wasn't, I mean, I was fairly confident at the time. I'm okay, it's got to come back, you know, because the way they sort of ended it, it's a bit of a cliffhanger, but I wasn't entirely sure. But it's back, maybe, and it picks up right where the last issue ended. And I'm not going to get a whole lot into it because a lot happens in this issue, but it's fucking excellent. And I love the fact that Crossjack is, you know, even though he's helped the town and saved a bunch of people's lives, people still fucking hate him. and I love that because he's, you know, he's just like, all right, he fucked up. You get a little bit more about, you know, what it was that he did to sort of get kicked out of Third Gen, the superhero group he was in. But it's like, I feel it's like, at the same time, it's like, this is a dude, he just wants to do the right thing, and everyone's constantly fucking shitting on him. Is he a perfect guy still? No. But this is a great superhero book without being like your prototypical superhero book.
Hmm.
There's a lot of, you know, personal, you know, like a lot of human elements to it, and it's just Seeley and Fleeks fucking nail it. So if you haven't been reading Local Man, I highly suggest go out, grab the volume 1. It is out. Get caught up. Go to your local comic book shop, right? Put it on your pull list. Get caught up. Keep reading it because it's fantastic.
This is one of the books that I had FOMO about. Like this, along with World Tree, those are the 2 books that in this year that you called dibs on that I was like bothered that I wasn't able to read these 2 things. It felt like they both were having a moment. And because it's spooky season, I actually tried. Local Man was on my, I want to say short list, but that's not entirely true. My short list of books for while I was on my honeymoon, but I want to try and read a few others to have stuff in the hopper. Didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but once spooky season ends, that's going to be moving up on my list of things that I want to try and binge through because again, like this just sounds. It sounds like an awesome series, and you did it justice when you, at least I believe you did when you talked about it on the show. We'll find out once I read it.
Yeah. If I let you down yet, come on, son.
No, you have not let me down yet. You know what else hasn't let us down yet? Rogue Sun, issue 16. Rogue Sun is back. It feels like it's been away for a little while.
A lot of the massive verse has been away. We got, I think last week was it last week or the week before we got Dead Lucky?
Yep.
But we haven't had
no one.
We haven't had a no one in a little bit. We haven't had Radiant Black in a little bit. So there's been a little bit of books take pauses. It happens.
Yep.
Life happens. We get it. We understand. But man, I'm so fucking pumped that Rogue Sun is back. This was a killer fucking issue.
Yeah, this Rogue Sun 16 absolutely kicked ass. So obviously, Ryan Parrott, friend of the show, has done an outstanding job with this series, and Abel has been with him throughout the majority of this. And then Marco Rena is also an artist in this issue. And we talk about the colors of this, and again, I believe Natalia Marks has been the colorist throughout the majority of the series, if not every issue. But like this is another issue where she is running wild, and there's a lot of like fire in the course.
Yes.
And the way she and it's obviously that's kind of important for Rogue Sun, but in a lot of action sequences that don't necessarily involve a Rogue Sun, she does she does an awesome job here. But again, there's so much action in this issue, and I don't ever feel like we get shorted on that with Rogue Sun. I feel like we always get a decent our fix of action in some capacity. But this is one of those issues where there's a lot of fucking action going on. And we got a lot in Rogue Sun 15 as well, because there's some major developments there. Or maybe it was Rogue Sun 14. But either way, we get some information on the big cliffhanger that we had last issue, and just all around like a very satisfying issue of Rogue Sun, which again, no surprise. I feel like we've said that every time, other than when you got the Confundus charm thrown on you. Got banned on TikTok.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that one got me. But I'm an old and my brain is Swiss cheese. But what you mentioned the colors. I mean,
sorry, who said that?
Right. The way just we talk about it all the time. Like character design is so important, and the suits, the different Rogue Suns, but the colors just fucking pop. But one thing that has become abundantly clear, right, is that in pun not intended, but Rogue Sun has a fucking amazing rogues gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. Right.
Agreed.
The baddies that Ryan has given us, throughout this series, have really, especially where we are now, with the story and where it's going, it's been tremendous. So fucking again, I can't say this enough, people. If you haven't read the book, what the fuck you waiting for? We talk about it every month when it comes out. You got to go fucking read it. Go get the trades, get caught up, add it to your pull list. Like I can never ever emphasize that enough. This is just a really fucking good comic book.
And to that end too, I do like this is one of those books where again, this is one of my favorite ongoing books, period. But when you talk about when we talk about with comics, obviously we want good stories, but also we're there for the art just as much. And when we get cool designs for characters, I mean, that sometimes is enough to bring you in. Okay, I know certain creators run the series, I'm going to check it out. And I think as we've gotten older, that's definitely been something that you and I have kind of taken to more. But at the same time, still now, and especially when I was younger, it's oh, I see a cool character. I want to, like, a cool look. I want to check this out. What the hell is this shit that's going on? And I still want that. Like, I still need that fix in some capacity. There are some stories where it's not as important. It's all about the story. But Rogue Sun, we get a great story. And then Ryan and Abel have been putting together some amazing designs for these characters. And like you said, like, it's an awesome, it's not just a cool rogues gallery in the sense of like, these are interesting characters with backstories that have potential. Like, every single one of them looks really freaking cool too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
A lot of guys with slick back hair. You know?
Yeah, real pieces of shit. Sloppy steaks at Trefani's on a Friday night or Tuesday night, whatever it is. Anyways, AWA, let's move over there. We got Rumpus Room issue 2. We haven't had a chance to give this a look, but we absolutely loved the first issue of that. So definitely something that we're both going to be looking forward to checking out. From Boom, we got quite a few books that you and I are reading. Coda issue 2 is the only one that you and I have not checked out, but I do believe that's from friend of the show, Cy Spurrier, who, by the way, oh my God, I didn't mention that from Comic-Con news. I can't believe I forgot to jot this down. He's getting a Hellblazer miniseries. So yes,
fuck, I even missed that. Yeah,
I am so freaking excited. So it looks like that's coming out early next year. I'm telling everybody right now, like, I want to try and get Cy back on to talk about that because I really, really enjoyed his first run. I've only done the one Hellblazer story on here, but with legacy characters, we try not to go back to that well too often, but man, like that was like for a time where Constantine, or honestly, Joe, the correct way to say it, as I've recently heard from another editor, it's Constantine. I'm just saying. I may need to adapt that. I know you're going to hate that.
Are you going to go to the store and buy some catsup?
Anyways, he for a time he was treated more like
you're going to pronounce it Basil instead of Basil.
Well, Basil of Baker Street. Just saying. Anyways, The Great Mouse Detective. Great. I love that movie. Anyways.
Tremendous.
Yeah, Radigan used to scare the fuck out of me as a kid, and like those.
Yeah, Swaggett's not a fan.
I don't blame her. I'm right there with you, Vi. But anyways, look, he just really turned back the clock with Constantine, and he's the dark, dingy character and just a real a-hole in that series. So I'm very excited. I would love to pick Cy's brain about how he's approaching this miniseries. Very excited to have him with that character again. But anyways, so from Boom, Coda issue 2, Wild's End issue 5. I did read issue 4, haven't finished issue 5. That was the last book I was reading, but I've had fun with this series. I don't think it's necessarily TLDR worthy, but it's been like a solid, fun read. I think it's something that you could give to like a young adult reader, and they might enjoy it. I just think but I don't think it's this thing where I'm like, you absolutely have to read it. But I'm definitely seeing this through without any issues. Then we got Grimm issue 14, which I am all caught up on. The cover for this week is outstanding, and the story is also friggin' awesome. Grimm 13 was fucked up, man. That was some really good shit. Dune, House Harkonnen issue 10. And then the last one is Sirens of the City, issue 14, which is a book that I have dibs on right now, written by Joanne Starr and illustrated by Carrie Randolph with letters by And World Design.
Excellence.
Yes.
Excellence.
I know. But we're not having that same issue here with Sirens of the City. And again, I've mentioned how the use of I'm talking about color more and more as we over the past over this year, I would say. But this is different from other stuff where this is a black and white story, and then we have a certain color that's associated with a certain type of mystical being. Like we have sirens where it's blue that's associated. We have characters that get red, some characters that get green, and now purple has been thrown into the mix. And this happened in this character got introduced in the 3rd issue. But again, in the 4th issue, we see this character again, and it's a lot about her. And it is the mom of our main character. And oh my God, she's a pretty significant individual in the course of history. And she's also, she's very evil. Very and she's my kind of evil too, where she is very casual about it, very comfortable with it, not trying not flaunting it, but also not shying away from the fact that I am what I am. If you don't like it, then I mean, I don't know what you want me to do about it. So this is another, like, this was a book that I had to catch up on. So I did read issue 3 and then 4 right back to back. But this is a TLDR worthy book. I'm very excited to talk about it. Obviously, Kara Randolph is an artist who I've talked about on here quite whenever I get the chance to talk about Kara Randolph, I do really enjoy his work. And this series is obviously no exception to that.
Absolutely love that. I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Quizzle.
Oh,
Quiz, checking in from Germany. My guy. Welcome to the
wow.
chat, brother. It's I am 1123. Hello, mate. Yeah, Quiz.
Wow. Look
Love
at
Quiz.
that. I heard, I saw that we had listeners in Germany, but I didn't actually.
I just assumed it was Hasselhoff, but I guess it's Quiz.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, right. So fuck, we are well behind tonight. So from Dark Horse, we have a few books here. We have The Alternates issue 2, Cyberpunk 2077 XOXO issue 1, Headless Horseman Halloween Annual issue 1, and then we have a new book, a number 1 from Matt Kint, and this is Subgenre issue 1. And so I've talked about on the show way back when, like year 1-ish, right, of TLDR, bang. And it was sort of this, meta heady, spy thriller. And Matt Kint, what I love about his writing in a lot of these books is that they seem like they're all sort of in the same universe, right? And he has this great way of breaking different walls and different barriers with his characters. And like Bang was really meta because it was like the story within a story, and you had sort of like this narrator, telling the story, and then they meet. It was really meta, and it was awesome. And he did that with Folklords and another book of his, Revolver, which I haven't read yet, but I plan on. So this was no different. This was an excellent first issue, sci-fi. You've got this character sort of in the future. He's a detective. And there's a lot of great Easter eggs in the art where you see like the character he's reading, Bang, right? He's reading the book Bang.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's another story that sort of, the plot revolves around these rare books and this detective who's trying to solve this triple homicide, and shit goes off the rails real fast. And I love a good detective story, and the wrench that gets thrown in at the end of the first issue, like again, we talk about all the time. First issue's job is to sink its teeth into you and to get you to want to get that second issue now. And this absolutely does it. This is so Matt Kent, it hurts, and I love it. I'm here for it. So Subgenre issue 1, if you're listening to this, go, you haven't hit your local comic book shop. If you see it, grab it. Definitely worth the read. So good.
Full disclosure, because I'm always honest with you, I meant to check this out like first among things, and I just got excited by some of the other things. I just didn't get and it fell behind on me, fell by the wayside, I should say. And because I was going to try and steal dibs on you, because I saw Kint and I was like, oh, this is going to be good, and Joe's going to want this, but
yeah,
I missed out.
I read it and dibs.
That's my own fault.
It happens. Hey, it happens. It happens.
Yep, something. That's right. Yeah. All right, let's see. So I'm going to roll through these real quick so you can get set for your book that you want to talk about at length today. So from Skybound, we got Walking Dead Deluxe issue 74. Titan, we have Rivers of London, Here Be Dragons issue 4, and Robotech Rick Hunter issue 2. From Dynamite, we got Gargoyles Halloween issue 1 and Red Sonja issue 4. From Top Cow, we got Antarctica issue 4, which Joe is reading. From Comixology, we got Duck and Cover issue 2. I think the last of the Snyder, the Scott Tober books from Comixology, which
finally, the first issue came out like 6 months ago.
Right. And then Joe is on that one. Then we got Millar World. We got Big Game issue 4. We don't get review copies for Millar World stuff. So we're going to have to wait like everybody else to pick that up on Wednesday. Very excited for that, though. And then from IDW, we got TMNT issue 144, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees issue 1, Dark Spaces Good Deeds issue 5, TMNT Best of Bebop, My Little Pony Black, White, and Blue issue 1. That's interesting. That sounds like a bruise. And so that's it for IW. And as everybody knows, the last title we talk about in mainline usually means that is the company that Joe is going to be talking about today. Is that the case, my friend?
That is the case. A quiz, yes. Fryer did get married. He'll tell you every fucking 3 seconds. But he won't tell you that, he should thank me for it because I was really I really spearheaded the whole thing.
Thanks, Quiz. It says quiz, by the way, not quiz, you illiterate.
I said quiz.
You said quiz. We're gonna play this back. I'm making this. This is bullshit.
Okay. Harley Quinn.
Well played. All right. We're even.
Okay. All right. So here we are, 50 minutes in, and we're just getting to our fucking.
I called you an illiterate. Fucking just threw it in my face. That was well done, sir. If I had a hat, I'd tip my cap to you.
Well, thank you, sir. So we have Road of Bones from IDW. And this is written by Rich. If I apologize, Rich, if I butcher your last name, but Rich Doak, with artist by Alex Cormack, who we've talked about a lot on the show, especially his work with John Lee's. With Sync and Crimson Cage. The letterer is Justin Birch. So these three, they have worked together on numerous books. Road of Bones, which I'm talking about today. Sea of Sorrows, which I read. Excellent. Another great spooky book. And then Breath of Shadows, or Breath of Sounds, sorry, which is another book that I've read. And then they have a new one coming out. I think Drive Like Hell is the title of it, and that's actually coming out from Dark Horse. But today we're here to talk about Road of Bones and the great trio that these make when it comes to writing horror books. Synopsis: in 1953, the Siberian gulag of Kolyma is hell on earth, which is why Roman Morozov leaps at the chance to escape it. But even if they make it out, Roman and his fellow escapees still have hundreds of miles of frozen tundra between them and freedom. With the help of mysterious beings straight out of his childhood fairy tale stories, Roman just might make it, or is the being simply a manifestation of his brutal circumstances driving him insane? So right from the rip, right? It's just, if you're familiar with Alex Cormack and his art, it is grisly, it is vicious. He's got this raw sort of sketchiness to it, which I think just works perfectly when it comes to telling a horror story, because you're creeped out by it, right? And that's its job, right? And that's Alex's job, is to sort of bring this horrifying world, to life. So it's a real quick read. It's 4 issues, and absolutely excellent. And so, like I said, these guys are just a tremendous horror team. So the story, as it says in the synopsis, is sort of taking place in the middle of winter, in Russia, and what's going on is you have the sort of the Russian military is responsible for building this road from connecting this small sort of Russian town in Kolyma to sort of main civilization of Russia. And the title of the book, Road of Bones, means just that. So as they're building this road, and what's great about this too is at the end of this series, Rich Doak sort of pens sort of like the origins of like how we came up with this story. And it's not like this is like 100% based on something that really happened, but like parts of it are true. Like the Road of Bones, as they're building this road, these the people building the road are prisoners, right? They're in the gulag, they're in this prison camp. If they died, well, the ground was too fucking hard for them to dig up a shallow grave, so they would literally just bury the people in the road that they were working and just build the road right over them, right? So right off the bat, like you've got this visualization, and you see it, right? You see a prisoner mouthing off to a guard, bam, dead. Throw them in the road, guys. Keep going, right? So you get that right off the rip. But as you would imagine, right? You think of the gulag, you think of middle of the 20th century Russia. Just you think of it's just fucking, it's a wasteland, right? And the conditions are not great, and food is scarce, right? You've got a very distinct hierarchy between, the military and the prisoners are treated less than shit. And that really comes to life with Alex's art. But behind that, what's being told is this great story, by Rich Duick, where you've got, you're sort of introduced to this one character who he's a prisoner, and he's a prisoner because he told a joke about Stalin,
Oh, jeez.
and someone ratted him out, and he got sentenced to 20 years, right? And he's working in the kitchen, and so like he gets busted for stealing some food, right? Taking a little extra food. You don't know, you're assuming it's for him, but when you find out what it's really for, that's where the story really takes a great little turn. But he gets like an extra 20 years added to his sentence, and he gets his shit kicked out of him at the same time. So what's happening, what's unfolding in this first issue is you've got this torturous sort of labor camp, right? Building this road in these miserable conditions. Of course, people are going to want to escape. And so we're introduced to, I'm going to just sort of name these characters. I'm not really going to go into them because I really don't want to give anything away.
Okay.
But the three main characters in the story are Roman, Grigori, and Sergei. And Grigori is, we get introduced to him. He's sort of the mastermind behind this escape. You learn that he's sort of a former gangster. He's very ruthless. He's very terrifying looking, and sort of he and his buddy Sergei pick Roman out because they see someone. Okay, maybe this guy, can help us, while we're out there. And so they sort of plan this escape. And so the story really revolves around, once these guys make this escape, they're in the middle of fucking nowhere, and they're running out of, they don't have a lot of food to begin with. And what is Grigori really up to? Does he have a plan? Is he sort of, is there this false sense of hope that he's telling these guys for whatever his motives may be? But you also learn a lot about Roman, right? And there's something very, very odd with Roman, and sort of why he's been stealing food, and sort of we get some great horror elements to this. I think the suspense, right? I think one of the great things, one of the when people are writing great stories, they're able to create suspense without there being actual violence or things of that nature. Like, you don't need things to scare you, but you could set things up where, like, the characters are constantly in peril.
Mhm.
What's around the corner, right? There's a lot of that suspense built into that,
Nice.
but then we also get those extra things that sort of elevate horror stories, whether
Mm.
it's a supernatural being, or it's a bloodthirsty lunatic, or whatever the cause may be. So when we start to learn some of the motives, and you can kind of pick up, just exactly why Grigori had singled out Roman to be part of this sort of escape plan,
Ooh.
is excellent,
Ooh. Right
right?
there.
And then the turn that happens in the third issue, it's vicious and it's fantastic. So this is a really great horror story. Again, it's a quick read, but this team just knows how to tell a great story visually, through the colors, through the line art, through the storytelling, all of it. Absolutely fantastic. And I highly recommend reading the follow-up story, which is not related. It's not like this, these are all like in the same universe. It's just the same team writing these sort of three awesome independent horror stories, is
Okay.
Sea of Sorrows, and then Breath of Sounds, right? Just, they're all excellent in their own way, and they all have different color palettes too, which is excellent, right? Road of Bones, it's a lot of white because they're in the tundra, right? A lot of white, a lot of red, right? Sea of Sorrows, because it's taken out and placed in open sea, it's very dark, right? It's inky, it's murky. And then Breath of Sounds revolves around sort of this rock group, psychedelic. It's very vibrant with its colors. You want to think of, like, late 60s, hippie movement kind of, colors.
Is that last one a horror as well?
Yeah, they're all horror, and
They're all horror.
they're all excellent.
Okay.
So, like, if you want a good spooky book to read for Halloween, I would recommend starting with Road of Bones, and then you could read all three of these series really in one sitting because they're all like this was 4 issues. I think they go up to 5 and 6, or maybe they're both capped at 5. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they read quick because they're excellent. So I highly recommend this for a spooky season comic to read.
Just hearing you break it down, it sounds like such a concise, like fast moving story. And I
Yeah,
understand
there's
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 a
no
step.
fat. It's just you know.
Yeah. And that's impressive. Like, and because of that, like, look, generally when we talk about it, we have an idea. Like, if it's a limited series, like, okay, maybe it can get turned into a movie. Sometimes there are certain stories that like stretch out that can get turned into a movie, but even then, maybe they're better off as a show. Like, this sounds like it's a movie, like 100%.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just
All
like I'm not no, like not even like I'm asking you. Like this sounds like a movie
yeah
pitch to me. The
yeah.
way you're talking about it, it's insane.
All three of these I think would make excellent movies.
Mm.
Right, nice tight movies. Each one just gets a little more wild than the next. Especially when it comes to some of the supernatural elements of things. Breath of I think I call it Breath of Sounds. I always want to call it Breath of Shadows, and maybe that's what it is. I'm old. Bear with
Yeah.
me. But that one gets that one gets real vicious. It's nice. Like they're all excellent books, but I would definitely start with Rhoda Bones. Get a feel for this creative team, and then you'll be in.
Yeah, well, we have a feel for Alex Cormack stuff, and
Yeah.
obviously you've talked about Doak on here before. I think we need to get Doak on just to make sure we get his last name right. And then
Yeah.
Cormack, we've talked about him a lot on this show. I mean, at some point, because he's a New Hampshire guy, right? If I'm not mistaken.
He's a New England guy.
Yeah.
I think Rich Keefe of the Rich Keefe Project and the Dork Podcast. Who is it? Uncle Buck? I think
Yeah, I
he's
think
like
it's
Uncle Buck's brother-in-law or something like that.
something
Or
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have
So
to find a way to make that happen because he does a lot. I mean, just enough just to talk about Sync and like how depraved his mind is.
yeah,
But yeah, I got to check out Road of Bones. Like this sounds friggin' outstanding.
yeah.
Now for me, like I mentioned earlier, we have something interesting going on today. Something that doesn't
I'm gonna
happen
leave now. You can
often.
talk about this book.
Yeah.
I'll be back in 10.
Joe did himself in. I can't believe. I forget. You put these images on Instagram that you put together, right?
Yeah.
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 So if you guys go to our Instagram, TLDR_pod, Joe, like there's a specific reason that Joe stopped reading the book that I'm talking about today. And yet he basically like picks as vicious of an image related to that issue to like, and then puts it on Instagram. Like you had to look at this as you were designing this thing. I know
Yeah.
like the format, but shit, man. So I couldn't believe it when you texted me this thing. So I am talking about Sandman Universe Nightmare Country. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we've gotten from the Sandman Universe. We mentioned it earlier. There's still stuff coming out from Sandman Universe from DC Black Label, and that is awesome. Obviously, the Sandman show was friggin' outstanding. Sandman in general is a legendary character that Neil Gaiman developed at DC, and obviously there was another character by the name of Sandman who's popping up in DC right now, but that's not the same Sandman. But the book that we're talking about today came out in 2022. It was a 6-issue run. Again, Black Label. The trade is out now. It came out earlier in the year. And why Joe had dibs on it originally is, of course, because it's James Tynion IV, which Joe is 9 times out of 10 getting dibs on a James Tynion IV book. The 10th time is when I'm actually fucking paying attention.
Bravo. You finally grew some nuts.
The artist is Lissandro Esterin, and we do have guest stars, which I will mention those to make sure we give them all credit. And then the colorist is Patricio Del Pecci with letters by Simon Boland. But I think it's safe to say that the artist and colorist on this are the reason why you stopped reading this book, Joe. Would you care to explain and put it in your own words?
Yeah, Nick, for those watching, if you were to get out of the way for a moment, stand up, move your chair, right? I want people to see this. I would also highly suggest going to the Instagram page and checking it out. But you see this right behind Nicholas here. I don't know who this character is. I'm not.
Corinthian.
Yeah, I don't. I've never read Sandman.
You didn't watch the show though?
Do you think I'm gonna watch the fucking show if I couldn't read the goddamn comic book?
That's fair.
I will watch the show, but anyways,
It's really good.
this dude's got mouth for eyes on top of having a regular mouth. I got 2 pages into this comic book and I said, nope, I can't do it. I can't do it. Was there like a really like large, obese, disgusting character in that first issue too?
Yes.
Yeah,
Also had so now I'll get into my stuff.
Can't do it. Can't fucking do it.
So, couple again, making sure that we get all the credits correctly and everything in this. There was one issue where Maria Lovett was both the artist and the colorist. We did have guest artists because there were different parts of the story that Tynan was talking about were called for a different artist. We got for different pencilers. We got Yannick Paquette, Andrea Sorrentino, Francesco Francavilla, Danny, and then Aaron Campbell, and then guest colorists. We got Nathan Fairbairn, Jordi Belair, and Tamara Bonvillain. As for the synopsis of this, and I tried to parse this down a little bit to not get too bogged down in it, but when the Corinthian learns of the Smiling Man, it sends him on a quest across the nightmare country that is the waking world, where he will grapple with the vicious sadomasochists, deranged venture capitalists, and the embodied spirit of America itself. So the Corinthian is, I mean, one of the Sandman's greatest characters, one of the one of his greatest creations, and like a way that it's kind of summed up by Tynan, who, by the way, this was a big deal for him because Sandman is why he loves comics. He has a whole thing about it in the trade when you guys check it out, but it's definitely worth reading. It's a couple pages long, but he is created to be a dark tormentor of humanity, and he's a nightmare, that's gone rogue, and again, you see him a lot in the Sandman show too, and that's where it's like when I saw him on the cover of this and you called dibs, I was like, fuck man, like that's gonna, and then obviously Tynan's writing it, that's gonna be good. When you rescinded the dibs, I was like, oh wow. So and I get it, and he only did a couple pages, but the Corinthian is who this like the straw that stirs the drink on this for sure. I thought you had something to say. I apologize. So anyway,
no, I've got nothing to say.
But what happens with him, and I'm actually looking at some of the first pages here, is he's coming to haunt someone's nightmare, someone who he's gone and he's gone and haunted before. And when he does that, this guy is sleeping with another one of the main characters, Madison Flynn. So he comes they're in Madison Flynn's room. The Corinthian comes in, talks to the guy, and then the Corinthian stops because he sees Madison Flynn's artwork. And her artwork has all this artwork of the Smiling Man, which looks like the Corinthian. We're seeing mouths for eyes,
I remember that.
And then obviously a normal mouth and everything. And the Corinthian is taken by this, and he's like, this is strange. What's going on? And the dude who he's haunting is very much thrown off by this as well, to the point where he's like, this isn't normally how it goes. And he actually asks him at one point, are you still going to eat my eyes? And then there's a silent panel where the Corinthian looks at him, and then it closes up on the Corinthian's face, and he says, yes. And he eats his eyes with his mouth eyeballs. That's how it all works. So if that's not nightmare fuel enough for you, I don't know what is. But in an outstanding character, I do think that if you haven't at least watched the show, it might be, you won't appreciate it in full. Obviously, if you read the comic, you're going to appreciate it in full. But I think if you haven't at least watched the show, you won't appreciate it as much, because this is a lot about the character, the Corinthian. And don't get me wrong, there's like a plot that's larger than him, but it's very much centered around him. So, I mean, and look, Tynan does a great job of writing this character. So maybe there are some people out there who hadn't read it, hadn't watched the show, gave it a look, and then got invested. I wouldn't be stunned by that, but the full appreciation is going to come with getting a little background on this character from elsewhere, because there's definitely ways to access the Corinthian in other spaces. On top of him, I mentioned Madison Flynn. She's an artist who has been for a long time. I remember if it's her whole life or just a long time. She's been seeing the Smiling Man in her dreams, and the Smiling Man looks like the Corinthian, but as you mentioned, is this big, disgusting blob-looking figure. And I mean, the skin is all nasty, and again, it has the same eye situation as the Corinthian, and she's like draws him, like, or paints him, I should say.
Paint me like one of your French ladies.
Exactly. And then, but it seems like that's a problem. She's not supposed to be seeing them. And that's where we get Mr. Ecstasy and Mr. Agony. And I'm curious, Joe, if you saw either of these two characters, because these are the two that I thought were the reason that you stopped reading the book, not the Corinthian. And to give you a quick refresher, Mr. Agony, not as jarring of an individual. He wears this like mask that like looks like he might be in BDSM or something like that, where he like his nose is out so he can breathe, and then he has a zipper around his mouth, like the zipper's open so he can talk, but like everything else of his face is covered and he can't see anything, and he's like permanently like that. Fairly tame looking individual, like odd, but like tame when compared to Mr. Ecstasy, who has hooks around his eyes to keep his eyes open at all times, and then hooks around his mouth that seem to keep his mouth open at all times. Does that guy ring a bell at all for you?
I'm trying to remember. That doesn't sound like anything that should ever be seen by anyone or even thought of or conceived of. I have very distinct I have PTSD from this fucking issue. I have very distinct images of Madison's bedroom with the paintings. And right, I have, and then I think the last thing I remember, because I remember the fat blob character, were they out like on a dock?
Yes,
that's the last thing I remember.
So you definitely saw those two guys. Those guys,
yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I can't remember if it's in every issue like this, but I know at the end, like when you see the smiling man, like when you actually see him, his eye mouths are even more disgusting than
it's
Corinthians
so
are
fucking unnecessary.
The Corinthians are jarring. His are fucking nasty. Like they're like and I saw that's another one where I was like, yeah, Joe couldn't handle this shit. Like I don't, and I don't blame you. Like it's freaky, but again, if you really like the Corinthian, which I think is a character a lot of people can like, I think if you like Constantine, he has a similar vibe to him, definitely different. But there's like an air to him that like reminds me of Constantine, and maybe I'm off, but it's just there's something about him that's there. And look, there are other players in this story. I mean, there are other players that are alluded to in the synopsis that I read. I don't want to get into more. I don't want to spoil things. Some of them don't pop up right away. Some of them kind of develop into more important figures as the story goes along. But by and large, like you have an awesome character in the Corinthian. You have a compelling pairing in Mr. Ecstasy and Mr. Agony that kind of have their own thing going on, and they all kind of cross together late in the story. And then again, the humans in here are like, they're interesting characters, don't get me wrong, but they very much are like pawns in the course of all this too. So awesome series. And again, the art is absolutely terrifying. I think that Lissandro Esterin did an outstanding job with these characters. Definitely ones that are going to stick with you. And Joe, I'm sorry if I brought these visuals back into your head, but awesome stuff. And also, if you haven't watched the Sandman show, like, unless you're Joe, get moving on it, please.
Yeah, I'm sure I will, to be honest with you, because I heard it was really good. But
oh yeah,
and I do want to go back, and I know it's a daunting task to read the original, game in Sandman.
Sure.
But sorry. My child is wonderfully ridiculous, and I love her to death.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? It's about that time, anyways, Joe.
It is. So, but anyways, I just couldn't do it. Right? We talk about artwork and how important it is, and how much it could either bring us into a comic book or take us out of it. And this took me out of it solely because it achieved its job in scaring the shit out of you, and it did. It scared the absolute piss out of me. And the artists that you named are all excellent artists. I mean, I fired off a tweet last week naming my Mount Rushmore of horror artists, and two of them were brought up today: Alex Cormack and Francesco Francavilla. Right?
Was Sorrentino the other one too in your?
Oh yes,
yeah,
right. Sorrentino, right?
Three of
right. So three
today, yeah.
right. And then the fourth one being Delabar Telic.
Yep.
Nailed that one. But
Nice.
they do, but there's so many great artists out there, right? And that's what you want, right? Art is supposed to evoke emotions,
Yes.
period. Whether it's horror, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger, whether it's happiness, whatever it might be. And I mean that's what this book did, right?
Hmm.
The writing's great because it's tiny, but the art was so good that I couldn't read it
Yeah. That.
because I just couldn't handle it.
Yes, and again, that is a warning to everybody who is thinking about reading this. Like the art is not just like scary; it's jarring, flat out. And if you don't know what the Corinthian looks like, I would look that up before you decide whether or not you want to delve into this. But I had a great time. Like I absolutely crushed this, and I wanted to give this a look before we did the Black Label episode that we did with Rich Keefe, and I just like it was so easy to get this one in. So awesome stuff there. But that is going to do it for us this week. Oh, look at you. Wow.
Oh Jesus! Did the mute button did not mute?
No, it didn't work that time. I'm turning to
No,
change my mind over here.
I
With all
just
this
Belichick. The next thing I do is take this mic and just absolutely like hammer the hell out of it and
yeah,
be in full Belichick mode.
there you
Fuck
go.
sake.
But that is going to do it for us until next week, Joe. Stay sexy.
You know it, baby. Love you, Quiz.